Miracle, the restoration of your true nature by Wisdom Matrix 1111. When you hear the word miracle, what comes to mind? For most people, a miracle is something rare, something unexpected, something that seems to break the rules of reality. It is often described as a violation of natural law, as if, for a brief moment, the universe steps outside of its own structure. And because of that, miracles are placed at a distance. They are seen as exceptions, events that happen only under special conditions to certain people at certain times. But what if that understanding is incomplete? What if a miracle is not something that breaks the laws of nature, but something that reveals a deeper layer of them? Because what you call natural is often just what you have become used to. It is what you see every day, what you no longer question, what your mind has labeled as ordinary. But familiarity does not mean something is not extraordinary. It only means you have stopped noticing it. As Albert Einstein said, there are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. The difference is not in what happens, but in how you perceive it. What you call a miracle is often just something you don't yet have an explanation for, or something you've stopped paying attention to. The world does not change between those two views, only your awareness does. And sometimes what seems like a miracle is not a break from reality, but a clearer glimpse of how it has always been. When you begin to look at life from this perspective, something subtle starts to change. You no longer wait for a miracle to appear. You begin to notice what has always been there. Because the truth is, what you call ordinary life is filled with processes so intricate, so precise, that they quietly defy the way you've been taught to see them. Your body, for example, is constantly regulating, repairing, and sustaining itself without your conscious command. Your heart beats, your lungs breathe, your nervous system transmits signals with remarkable accuracy. Trillions of cells are coordinating, adapting, responding all at once. And yet, because it happens every day, it feels normal. But normal doesn't mean simple, and it doesn't mean insignificant. It only means you have become used to it. The same is true for everything around you. The balance of nature, the structure of ecosystems, the way the universe holds itself together in silent precision. None of it is random in the way it appears, and none of it is trivial. It is simply unnoticed. And then, if you take this one step further, and look at your own existence a little more closely, something even deeper begins to unfold. Being here right now, as the exact person you are, is not something ordinary. It is something astronomically unlikely. As discussed by evolutionary biologist Richard Dawkins, when you begin to consider the layers behind your existence, the scale of it becomes almost impossible to fully grasp. Think about it for a moment. For you to exist, your parents had to meet at a precise moment in time, not earlier, not later, because even a slight shift and you wouldn't be the same person, or perhaps not here at all. And then there is something even more subtle. Out of millions of possibilities, one specific sperm met one specific egg. One combination out of countless others became you. And this doesn't begin with your parents. It extends backward, through generations. Each ancestor had to survive, had to meet the right person at the right moment, across hundreds, even thousands of years. A single break in that chain, and your existence, as you know it, disappears completely. When you begin to see it this way, the idea that your life is just normal starts to lose its meaning. Because what you are is the result of an almost unimaginable sequence of events aligning perfectly. You could even say, just to sense the scale of it, that your existence is rarer than selecting one specific atom out of all the atoms in the universe. Not as a precise calculation, but as a way of pointing to something the mind can barely hold. And when you truly let that in, your perception begins to change. You stop waiting for life to become extraordinary. And you begin to realize, not only are you a miracle, you are living inside one. And yet, despite the depth and precision of life, most people don't experience it as something extraordinary. The reason is not complicated, but it is often overlooked. It has to do with attention, and more fundamentally, awareness. Where your attention rests, and how aware you are of it, quietly shapes your entire experience. And in a world filled with constant stimulation, endless input and continuous mental activity, attention rarely settles. It keeps moving, pulled from one thought to another, from one concern to the next, until the present moment becomes something you pass through rather than something you truly encounter. In that constant movement, something subtle is missed, not because it is hidden, but because it requires stillness to be noticed. The quiet presence of life does not compete for attention. It is simply there. There is also a deeper pattern that develops over time. The more familiar something becomes, the less deeply it is perceived. Repetition does not reduce the richness of what is being seen, but it does reduce the sensitivity of the one who is seeing. Gradually, what is intricate begins to feel ordinary, and what is extraordinary is absorbed into routine. This is how a kind of unnoticed blindness forms. You continue to see, but you no longer perceive with depth. As Helen Keller once said, the only thing worse than being blind is having sight but no vision. Vision in this sense is more than the ability to see. It is the capacity to recognize meaning, depth, and what is already present. Without it, even the miraculous can go unnoticed. There is one more layer to this. The way you experience yourself becomes the lens through which everything else is interpreted. If you come to see yourself as limited, separate, or confined to what you have been told is possible, that assumption quietly shapes your perception. It narrows what you notice, what you expect, and what you allow into awareness. Nothing essential has disappeared. Life has not become less profound. The sense of wonder has not been removed. It has simply been covered by habit, by distraction, and by the way perception has been conditioned over time. When that conditioning begins to loosen, even slightly, something different starts to take place. Not as a sudden event, and not as something you force into existence, but as a gradual clearing. There is less interference, less resistance, less distortion in the way experience is filtered. And as that happens, what was always present begins to come forward on its own. A sense of coherence emerges. Not something imposed, but something recognized. Life begins to feel less fragmented, less divided, and more naturally aligned. From this perspective, even healing can be understood differently. The body responding, adjusting, reorganizing itself toward balance is not an anomaly. It reflects an underlying intelligence that has always been operating, whether noticed or not. Every healing, in that sense, is a miracle. It is life restoring itself to what it was always meant to be. There is a perspective found in A Course in Miracles, a spiritual self-study text, that describes a miracle as a shift in perception. This is not a dramatic claim, it is a precise one. When perception changes, the way life is experienced changes with it. You begin to relate to reality with less distortion and more clarity. What once felt separate starts to feel connected. What once seemed distant becomes immediate, and what once appeared ordinary reveals a depth that was always there. Alignment, then, is not something you construct through effort. It is what remains when the noise subsides and the layers of misperception fall away. And from there, life begins to express itself with greater coherence and ease. What once felt fragmented starts to come back into alignment, not as something newly created, but as something restored. And perhaps this is what a miracle truly is, the restoration of your true nature. Thank you for tuning in to Wisdom Matrix 1111. If this wisdom resonated with you, please take a moment to like the video, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Until next time, peace.